Have you ever trusted your own child, only to discover they saw you not as family, but as an obstacle standing in the way of money? That's what happened to me. At 77, my daughter told me my sickness wasn't her problem, and she tried to strip away everything I had built: my home, my savings, my dignity. But here's the twist she never expected. Instead of breaking me, her betrayal became the very spark that set me free. What I did next not only turned her plans upside down, it gave me back something she thought was gone forever: my worth. Stay with me, because this is not just another family drama story. This is one of those rare, true stories that prove dignity never dies. Have you ever looked into your own child's eyes and realized they didn't see you as a parent anymore, but as a burden in the way of money? That was the moment my heart broke. My name is Thomas Ellery. I'm 77 years old, a widower, and for most of my life I was a combine operator in the endless wheat fields of Kansas. Not glamorous work, but I knew every sound of those engines, every smell of diesel and grain. Farmers trusted me with their harvests because they knew I'd treat their fields like they were my own. For 42 years, I rose before dawn, came home only when the sun had slipped away, my body coated in dust and sweat. My wife Margaret, my Maggie, used to laugh and say she could tell the time by when the smell of wheat and oil came through the door. We were married 52 years. I still remember the day she walked into the field in her white dress, carrying lunch in a basket, the sun haloing her like something out of a painting. Her hands always smelled of vanilla because she baked cookies every Saturday. Even now, sometimes when I wake in the quiet of this empty house, I swear I smell that vanilla. 2 years ago, cancer took her from me. 4 months from diagnosis to the last breath I held in my arms. That silence after she was gone has been heavier than any load I ever hauled. We had only one daughter, Diana. Margaret insisted on the name, said it came from a novel she loved. Diana is 46 now, with a husband, Gregory, and 2 children, Lucas and Anna. They live across town in a sleek house by the river, all glass and polished wood, the kind of place Margaret and I never dreamed of affording. Since Maggie died, Diana calls less and less. At first it was every day, then once a week, then only on holidays. I told myself it was fine. She had her own family, her own responsibilities. But the truth is, every ring of the phone that wasn't her left the house feeling emptier. About a year after the funeral, Diana came to me with papers, legal papers. She said she was worried about scams, about me being too old to handle numbers, and urged me to sign over power of attorney so she could manage things. I was tired. I didn't want to argue. I signed. I thought it would bring peace. Instead, it chained me. From then on, I received a fixed allowance like a child given pocket money. If I wanted anything extra, I had to ask, explain, justify. One night the old TV finally gave out. I asked Diana for help buying a new one. She shook her head. "Dad, you never understood the value of money. Good thing I'm in charge now." Imagine being told that by the very child you sacrificed everything for. Margaret and I saved every penny so Diana could attend the university she dreamed of. We skipped vacations, patched our old roof ourselves, wore coats longer than we should have, all so she could have what we never did. And now she tells me I don't understand money. I swallowed my pride. She was my daughter after all, my only family left. But last spring, when dizziness hit me so hard, I collapsed and split my forehead open. I realized how fragile everything had become. The doctors diagnosed heart failure, hypertension, and Parkinson's disease. I sat in that cold office chair, gripping the arms, my knuckles white, listening to the words fall like stones. Treatment, they said, would be expensive, close to $200,000 over the coming years. My daughter's first question wasn't, "Dad, are you scared?" It was, "How much is this going to cost?" That was the moment. That was when I saw it in her eyes. Calculation, not concern. If you're watching this, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe for more family stories that prove dignity never dies. The next morning, the rain came down in thin, stubborn lines, like the sky itself was too tired to cry properly. I put on my old work jacket, the one that still smelled faintly of diesel, and called a cab to the bank. I moved slow cane in one hand, breath measured. There are walks a man makes that he never forgets. That was one of mine. A young teller with careful lipstick and kind eyes sat me down. "How can I help you today, sir? I'd like to see the balance of all my accounts," I said, sliding over my ID. "And the last year of statements, please." Her fingers clicked over the keys, then stopped. "Mr. Ellery, there's a durable power of attorney on file, your daughter Diana." "I know," I said, "but the accounts are still mine." She printed a stack, neat and warm, from the machine. I held the papers in shaking hands and watched numbers turn into knives. From $250,000 whittled down to $5,800. Line after line transfers to Diana Ellery Carter, cashiers, checks, household expenses, professional development, travel, reimbursement. The largest was dated last night, $40,000. I could still feel the echo of her kiss on my cheek from that visit, her smile bright, her hands quick in my kitchen drawers, while the money slipped out the back door. "Is there a mistake?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'm sorry, sir," the teller said softly. "These are authorized transfers." I thanked her, walked back through the lobby like a man crossing a field he once farmed and no longer recognized, and sat on a stone bench outside under the sagging, ash-colored sky. The rain tapped the paper. I dialed Diana. She answered on the third ring. "Dad, I'm in between meetings." "What's up? I'm at the bank." My voice surprised me, calm like a winter road. "I'm looking at the statements." Silence stretched thin. "I can explain." "Go on." "I've been covering a lot, Dad. Taxes, utilities, repairs. You remember the roof, and there's the kids' needs and my training. You know about the Switzerland program. It's an investment. For all of us." "For all of us," I repeated. "I have Parkinson's. The doctor said the treatment could slow it." "I told you that." "It's experimental," she said a little too quick. "There's no guarantee. And you're 77. We have to be realistic." Her voice softened, deliberate as a hand on a chess piece. "I'm your only daughter. Your only heir. The money will be mine anyway, now or later. What difference does it make?" I closed my eyes. The words didn't strike, they settled heavy as wet grain, burying breath and memory underneath. "It makes a difference," I said. "Because I am still alive. Don't dramatize this, Dad." A sigh. "I've managed things responsibly. If I hadn't stepped in, you would have blown through it on what I asked. My pills, a new television." She ignored that. "The 40,000 is time sensitive. If I don't enroll now, I lose the spot. Once I'm promoted, I can reimburse you. We'll be fine." "We," I said. "Or you." The rain picked up. Somewhere a truck downshifted, and the sound curled through me like an old song. I thought of Margaret standing on our porch with her apron dusted in flour, calling out, "Come inside, Tom. You'll catch your death out there." I thought of Saturdays that smelled like vanilla, of patched coats and roofs repaired by our own hands, of school forms and tuition checks and graduation speeches where the speaker talked about gratitude while I clapped with cracked palms. "Listen," Diana said, impatience tightening each syllable. "I can't keep explaining basic math. You raised me to be practical. This is practical. And honestly, your treatment isn't my problem, not yet. Not yet. People say it's the big betrayals that destroy you. They're wrong. It's the 4 small words that fit in your pocket and cut you every time you reach for a little warmth." "Thank you for your honesty," I said, and ended the call. On the ride home, the cab's wipers marked off the seconds like a metronome. In the living room, I placed the statements on the table beside Margaret's Bible, the one with notes in her careful hand, promises underlined, and dates in the margins where prayers were answered. I stood there a long time. Then I pulled out my address book, the one with numbers nobody calls anymore, and looked up Blackwell and Hayes attorneys. The card was yellowing. The ink hadn't faded. When the receptionist picked up, my voice didn't shake. "I need to revoke a power of attorney," I said. "And I need to change my will." "What prompted this action, sir?" she asked politely. I looked at the rain trembling on the window, at the empty chair across from me, where Margaret used to sit knitting lopsided scarves for grandchildren, who hardly wore them, at the stack of paper that had turned a lifetime into a balance line. "Love," I said, "and the lack of it." The appointment was set for morning. I hung up the phone and listened to the house breathe. Outside, the rain steadied, and for a moment it almost sounded like applause. I didn't sleep that night. The house creaked and sighed, the old clock ticked heavy in the hallway, and I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Margaret's Bible was still open on the table, the pages fluttering with every draft of wind. I remembered her handwriting in the margins, verses underlined, tiny notes that said "answered" or "wait." It felt like she was whispering across the silence. "Don't let this be the end of your story, Tom." By dawn, I'd made up my mind. If Diana saw me only as a walking wallet, then I had to take the wallet out of her hands. Not to punish her, but to protect the years I had left and the memory of everything Maggie and I built. At 9 o'clock sharp, I walked into the office of Blackwell and Hayes attorneys at law. The building smelled of old carpet and coffee. The receptionist led me to a small conference room where Mr. Blackwell himself sat, waiting, a man with silver hair and glasses that glinted like they could see straight through you. "Mr. Ellery," he said, standing to shake my hand. "How can I help you?" I placed the stack of bank statements on the polished table. "I need to revoke a power of attorney, and I need to write a new will." His eyebrows rose slightly, but his voice stayed calm. "Family matter, isn't it always?" I muttered. Then I told him everything, the allowance, the missing savings, the cold way my own daughter said my treatment was not her problem yet. My words shook, but my resolve did not. When I finished, he leaned back, steepling his fingers. "This is financial abuse, Mr. Ellery. You're not the first parent to suffer it, and sadly, you won't be the last. But you are taking the right step. Let's put protections in place immediately." For the first time in years, I felt like someone was on my side. We filled out the paperwork, revoking the power of attorney, freezing access to my accounts, and drafting a new will. I told him plainly, My daughter will receive no more than 10%. The rest, my house, my remaining funds, everything I wanted left to Ruth Parker. Ruth had lived 2 doors down for as long as I could remember. She was a widow herself with a kind laugh and a way of showing up on my porch with soup when I was too tired to cook. While Diana was busy at conferences or dinner parties, Ruth was the one who shoveled my walk in the snow, who drove me to the clinic, who sat with me in silence on nights when grief clawed too hard. She had shown me what real care looked like. "Are you certain?" Mr. Blackwell asked. "I am." My voice was steady. "Blood may tie you, but love is what keeps you. And she's the one who kept me alive." As he wrote, I looked out the window. Rain was falling again, soft this time, almost gentle. I remembered Maggie once saying, "Rain washes everything clean, Tom. It's God's way of starting over." That day I chose to believe it. When I walked out with the folder under my arm, I felt lighter, though nothing in my life had changed yet. My daughter would rage, no doubt. But for the first time in years, I had reclaimed something she couldn't touch: my right to decide. My dignity. If you're still with me up to this point, type 1 in the comments so I know you're following along. 3 days later, a sharp knock rattled my front door. I had just settled in with a cup of weak coffee when I heard it. The kind of knock that doesn't ask, but demands. I didn't need to guess who it was. When I opened the door, there stood Diana Hare, perfectly styled heels, clicking on my old wooden porch, clutching a manila envelope. Her eyes burned like flint striking steel. "What is this?" "Dad," she hissed, waving the envelope. "Some letter from a lawyer saying I've been cut out. Are you out of your mind?" I stepped aside slowly. "Come in before the neighbors hear you shouting." Inside, she paced the living room like a caged animal. 10%, she snapped. "You left me with 10% after everything I've managed for you've managed." I sat down, leaning on my cane. "You drained my savings. You treated me like an inconvenience. That's not managing, that's theft." Her face twisted. "I've been carrying the weight of this family. Do you think Gregory makes enough to cover everything? Do you think raising 2 kids in this economy is cheap? You should be thanking me for stepping up." I felt a flicker of sorrow, but it burned away fast. "You didn't step up, Diana. You stepped on. There's a difference." For a moment she softened her tone, almost rehearsed. "Look, Dad, I made mistakes, but I've put money back. See?" She pulled out her phone, scrolling through bank apps, showing transfers labeled repayment. "I'm fixing it. But please don't do this. Don't humiliate me. Don't leave me behind." I studied her face. The words were right, but the eyes were wrong, calculating, not contrite. It wasn't remorse. It was strategy. "You're not sorry," I said quietly. "You're scared." That struck her. She slammed her phone shut, color rising in her cheeks. "Fine. You want to talk about scared. What happens when you get too sick to walk, too weak to eat? You think Ruth Parker is going to bathe you, change your sheets. She's a neighbor dad. Not family." I rose slowly, my knees aching, but my voice firm. "Family isn't just blood, Diana. Family is who shows up when you need them. And Ruth has shown up more in the past 2 years than you have." Her hands trembled as she jammed the envelope back into her purse. "You'll regret this," she spat. "One day you'll call me begging, and I'll remember this moment." I shook my head. "No. The only thing I regret is believing for too long that money could buy me a daughter's love. She froze in the doorway, her back rigid. You're choosing them over me. I'm choosing dignity over deceit. The screen door slammed behind her, rattling the house. For a long time I stood staring at the empty space where she had stood, the echo of her perfume hanging like smoke. My heart hurt in a way no medicine could cure. That night I prayed harder than I had in years. Not for money, not even for healing, but for the strength to let go of a child I still loved, but could no longer trust. And when I opened my Bible, Margaret's handwriting underlined a verse I must have skimmed 1,000 times. The truth shall set you free. For the first time, I felt those words in my bones. The days after Diana stormed out were strangely quiet. The house felt heavier, but not with the old emptiness this time. It carried something different, something sharper. A wound. Yet underneath that ache, I felt the first stirrings of resolve. I had drawn a line, and though my heart bled for it, I knew I couldn't step back. My doctor had mentioned a clinical trial for Parkinson's. It won't cure you, he said, but it could slow the decline. Before I would have asked Diana to help with the paperwork to drive me to the appointments. Now I called Ruth Parker. She showed up in her old Ford sedan, a thermos of coffee in her hands, and said, "We'll get through this, Tom." At the hospital, fluorescent lights hummed overhead as nurses explained the protocol. I signed form after form, thinking of Margaret's steady hand guiding me through bills and letters long ago. The first injection stung, but not as much as the thought of Diana's voice telling me my treatment wasn't her problem. Weeks passed. Slowly, I noticed changes. The tremors in my hands didn't vanish, but they lessened. I could hold a mug without spilling half of it. My writing, once jagged and slanted, straightened enough to sign my name without shame. I even sharpened my old carving tools and shaped a small cross out of cedar, sanding it smooth until it fit perfectly in my palm. Every night I sat with that cross, whispering prayers. Lord, I don't ask you to take this sickness away. I ask you to let me use what's left of me with purpose. And if there's still a plan, let me walk it with dignity. One evening, Ruth found me out on the porch, the sky painted orange with sunset. "Your hands are steadier," she said. "By God's grace," I answered, "and maybe a little science." She laughed, that soft kind of laugh that carries no judgment, only kindness. For the first time in years, I laughed with her. It felt foreign at first, then natural, like water finding its way back to the riverbed. Neighbors started noticing too. "Tom, you look stronger," one said at church. Another asked if I'd come back to the men's breakfast group. Slowly, pieces of me I thought were gone began returning. But here's the thing. Strength didn't just come from medicine. It came from faith, from choosing to believe that God wasn't finished with me yet. And it came from people who showed up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Sitting in the clinic one morning, I looked around at the others in the trial, men and women my age, some worse off, some better. I realized we were all holding on to the same fragile hope that we still mattered, that our days weren't just a countdown. And in that sterile room under humming lights and the faint smell of antiseptic, I understood something. Dignity isn't handed to you. You claim it even if your hands shake while holding on. It was a Tuesday morning, gray and cold, when I shuffled into the corner shop on Main Street. I only meant to buy bread and milk. Ruth had been reminding me to eat more, saying strength didn't come from pills alone. At the counter, my eyes fell on the bright stack of lottery tickets. I chuckled to myself. Ellie used to buy one ticket every now and then, saying, "It's not about winning, Tom. It's about hope." I hadn't bought one since she passed. That morning, for reasons I can't explain, I laid down a few pounds and took a single slip. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was Ellie nudging me from heaven. I forgot about it until Saturday night. The ticket sat folded on the mantel, nearly hidden under an old photograph of Ellie holding Diana as a baby. The announcer's voice on the TV rattled through the winning numbers, and I almost didn't check. But something made me reach for the slip. One number matched, then two, then three. By the time all six lined up, my hands shook harder than Parkinson's ever made them. I double-checked, then triple-checked, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I had won. Not a small prize. Not a couple hundred. The jackpot, 2.5 million. For a long time I sat there in silence, staring at the slip, as if it might vanish. Then tears came hot and unashamed. Lord, I whispered, clutching the cedar cross in my other hand. I don't know why you chose me, but thank you. Thank you. The next morning I went to church with Ruth. I hadn't told her yet. The hymns that day felt different, the words deeper. Great is thy faithfulness. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. I sang with a voice that cracked not from age but from awe. When I finally told Ruth about the ticket, she nearly dropped the pan of biscuits she was holding. Tom, you're joking. I'm not, I said, handing her the slip. God's given me a second chance. The money didn't make me feel young again. It didn't erase the tremors in my legs. But it gave me something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. I could pay for my treatments without begging. I could hire help without guilt. I could even fix the roof that Diana had lied about. But more than that, I saw it as a test. Would I use this blessing to sit in comfort? Or would I use it to live with purpose? I thought of Ellie's words. Rain washes away the bad Tom. Life always comes cleaner after the storm. This windfall felt like that rain washing away years of manipulation, giving me fresh ground to stand on. I opened a new account that only I controlled. I met with my lawyer, Mr. Blackwood, and told him we need to safeguard this. Diana cannot touch it. He nodded his pen, scratching across the page. This time, Mr. Ellery, you hold the reins. Walking out of his office, I breathed easier. For the first time in years, I wasn't at the mercy of anyone else. My life, my choices, my dignity restored. I didn't shout about the lottery. I didn't buy a mansion or a flashy car. Instead, I bought a new recliner for my aching back, hired a kind caregiver named Iris to help a few hours each day, and set aside a fund for future treatments. And every night I sat on my porch, looked up at the stars, and whispered, Ellie, we're all right now. We're finally all right. Because the truth is, winning the lottery wasn't just about money. It was about grace. It was proof that even in the late chapters of life, miracles still happen. The first time I walked into the bank after the lottery win, it felt different. Not because of the marble floors or the cold air conditioning, those had always been there. No, it was because for the first time in years, I wasn't walking in as a man under someone else's thumb. I wasn't the old father begging for a few pounds from his daughter. I was a man in charge of his own future. The clerk recognized me. Mr. Ellery, we have your account updates ready. She smiled politely, but I could see the curiosity in her eyes. News of sudden wealth always travels fast in a small town. I handed her the winning slip, and after a few signatures, the transfer was complete. My balance lit up on the screen, 2,500,000 tall. I didn't feel greedy. I didn't even feel proud. I felt relieved, like a drowning man who had finally been pulled back to shore. My first stop wasn't a car dealership or travel agency. It was my lawyer's office. Mr. Blackwood greeted me with that knowing look of his, the kind a man wears when he's seen too many families torn apart by money. "So, Thomas," he said, "what do you want to do with this blessing?" "Protect it," I answered. "Protect it from those who see me as a wallet instead of a father." He nodded. "That would mean a new will, new trusts, and clear documentation." "Are you ready for the storm this may bring with your daughter?" I leaned on my cane and met his eyes. "I've lived through storms before, Mr. Blackwood. This one won't sink me." We drew up a new will. The house, the savings, the lottery winnings, all secured. I left a modest portion for Diana, 10%, not out of bitterness, but out of principle. She would not profit from neglect. The rest, I decided, would go toward those who had stood by me when I was weakest, Ruth, her sister Eleanor, and even the small church that had kept me afloat with prayer. Signing those papers, my hands trembled, not from Parkinson's this time, but from the weight of it all. I was breaking a chain that had bound me for too long. When I left the office, the air felt lighter. The drizzle that had hung over the town for days cleared into sunlight. I tilted my face upward and whispered, "Ellie, I hope you'd be proud of me. I'm finally standing up straight." That evening I sat on my porch with Ruth and Eleanor. The two sisters brought pie and laughter, and for a moment I forgot about Diana's harsh words and the years of coldness. I told them about the new will. Ruth gasped, shaking her head. "Thomas, you don't owe me anything." "You're wrong," I said gently. "I owe you my thanks. And sometimes thanks is best shown, not just spoken." We bowed our heads to pray before dessert, and my voice cracked as I said, "Lord, thank you for rain after drought. Thank you for showing me that dignity is not lost even in old age. Help me use this gift wisely." For the first time since Ellie's passing, I felt peace settle in, not as a fleeting visitor, but as a permanent guest. I should have known Diana wouldn't stay silent for long. 3 days after I signed the new will, I heard her car screech into the driveway. The slam of the door echoed across the yard, sharp as thunder. She didn't knock this time. She barged in her heels, clicking like gunfire on the hardwood floor. "Dad," she said, her voice cold as stone. "What is this nonsense?" She tossed an envelope onto the table, the notice from Mr. Blackwood's office. I sat in my chair, cane in hand, watching her pace like a storm trapped in human form. For once, I didn't shrink back. "It's exactly what it looks like, Diana." I changed my will. Her eyes narrowed, glinting with fury. "To that neighbor woman, to her sister, to a church, you've lost your mind. That money should stay in the family." I raised a trembling hand, but my voice was steady. Family, Diana, isn't defined by blood alone. Family is who shows up when you need them. Ruth showed up. You didn't. Her face flushed. "That's not fair. I have a career, children, responsibilities. I couldn't be here every minute." "I never asked for every minute," I said. "I asked for help getting to the doctor. I asked for honesty about my finances. And what did you give me, lies? Excuses. Empty words." She crossed her arms, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "So that's it. You're cutting me out because I didn't play nursemaid. After everything I've done for you," I almost laughed. "Everything you've done, Diana. You drained my accounts, left me to sit in pain, and told me my treatment wasn't your problem. If that's care, then God help us." For a moment she faltered, her lips parting as if to reply, but nothing came out. Then anger returned sharper than before. "You're sick, Dad. You don't know what you're doing. That lawyer manipulated you. That neighbor manipulated you. They're vultures waiting for you to die." I leaned forward, gripping my cane. "No, Diana. The vultures weren't outside this house. They were inside it, and they carried my name in their blood." Her breath caught, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me, but of losing what she thought was hers. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "When Ruth gets tired of you, when the church forgets you, when you're alone, don't come crawling back." I felt a strange calm wash over me. I don't fear being alone anymore. God has carried me through worse storms, and I would rather die with dignity than live as your burden. Her hands clenched into fists, then loosened. She stood there silent for a long moment before finally spitting out, "You're no father to me." I nodded slowly. "And you've made yourself no daughter to me. Blood alone can't cover betrayal." She turned heels, stabbing the floor with every step, and slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. I sat back, heart pounding, but not from fear, from release. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the old emptiness. This time it was peace. I whispered a prayer into the stillness. "Lord, give me strength to carry this cross. And thank you for giving me the courage to finally stand tall." After Diana's stormy exit, I thought the silence in the house might crush me. Instead, it wrapped around me like a warm quilt. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like freedom. Each morning I rose slowly, steadying myself with my cane, but my heart was lighter. Ruth would stop by with her sister Eleanor, bringing coffee muffins and laughter that filled the kitchen, like sunlight spilling through the window. They never treated me like a burden. They treated me like a friend, a man, not just an old man waiting for the end. The lottery winnings meant I could hire Iris, a young caregiver with gentle hands and a cheerful smile. She didn't hover or pity me. She simply made life manageable, helping with meals, driving me to appointments, reminding me of medication. She even sat with me at the community center once a week, where I began carving wood again. I hadn't touched my chisels since Ellie passed. But one day, I pulled them out, sanded the handles, and started small, a wooden bird, its wings half spread. My hands trembled, but to my surprise, the bird took shape. Iris watched with wide eyes. "Mr. Ellery, that's beautiful." I laughed softly. "It's rough, but maybe that's what makes it real. Life is never smooth, is it?" The church became my anchor again. I hadn't sat in those pews with such peace since Ellie's funeral, but now when the choir sang, I found myself lifting my voice, cracked, though it was in gratitude. Not for wealth, not for health, but for the miracle of being alive with purpose. I donated part of the winnings, quietly repairing the church roof, funding scholarships for local kids. Pastor Martin shook my hand after service one Sunday. "Thomas, you've done more good than you know. Seeds sown in silence often grow the strongest." At home, the evenings were my favorite. Ruth and Eleanor would sit with me on the porch, the air cool, the stars spilling across the sky. We'd sip tea, play cards, or just talk. Sometimes I caught Ruth's eyes lingering on me with a tenderness that went beyond neighborly concern. I didn't press, it didn't rush it. But I felt it, the quiet possibility of late-life companionship. One night, as the crickets sang and the air smelled of honeysuckle, I whispered a prayer I hadn't dared before. "Lord, thank you for reminding me that love doesn't end when years pile up." Sometimes it begins again. Even my health felt lighter. The clinical trial continued, and though I wasn't cured, I was steadier, stronger, more capable of enjoying the days I'd been given. My doctor smiled when I showed him I could hold a pen without shaking too much. "That's progress, Thomas," he said. "Small victories matter." And they did. The real victory, though, was here in this house at this table with people who came because they wanted to, not because they expected to inherit anything. I no longer lived in fear of being used, discarded, or silenced. For years I thought dignity had died with Ellie. But now I knew better. Dignity is not something people can take. It is something you must claim, even if you have to wrestle it back from those you love. I breathed it in every night as the stars turned overhead, whispering, "Thank you, Lord, for peace after the storm." It's been months now since Diana stormed out of my life. At first I thought the ache of losing her would keep me awake every night. But instead, sleep comes easier, deeper. Perhaps it's because my spirit is finally unburdened. I still pray for her. Every evening when the lamp is low and the cedar cross rests in my palm, I whisper her name. Lord, soften her heart. Open her eyes. But I no longer pray in desperation. I pray with surrender, because I've learned that some things are not mine to fix. They're His. My days are quieter now, but they're full of small joys. Of Iris's cheerful humming as she cooks in the kitchen. Of Ruth's laughter floating through the garden. Of Eleanor's sharp wit over a game of cards. Full of the sound of children at church thanking me for the scholarships I set up. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at nothing, just because the sun feels warm on my face or because the smell of fresh bread reminds me of Ellie. She'd be proud, I think. Not because I won the lottery, not because I rewrote a will, but because I finally chose to live with the kind of strength she always believed I had. One Sunday after service, Pastor Martin put a hand on my shoulder. "Thomas, you've shown us all something. That dignity isn't lost in sickness, in age, or even in betrayal. Dignity is a gift from God, and it lives as long as faith does." I held back tears, nodding slowly. He was right. My story wasn't about money. It wasn't about punishment. It was about reclaiming what I should never have surrendered, my worth. Diana may never understand. My grandchildren may grow up believing the stories she spins about me. But one day, they'll see the truth. Maybe they'll hear it from Ruth or Eleanor. Maybe they'll see it in the carved cross I plan to leave behind. But they will know I wasn't the bitter old man their mother painted me to be. I was simply a man who refused to let love be measured in bank accounts. As I sit on the porch now, the sky painted in hues of gold and violet, I feel no fear of what's ahead. Parkinson's may still walk beside me, but it does not own me. Loneliness may knock, but it no longer enters uninvited. And death is but a door to reunion with Ellie, with peace eternal. So if you've listened this far, hear this truth. You are never too old to stand tall. Never too weak to claim back what is yours. Never too forgotten to be seen by the one who made you. Dignity never dies. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, because here we tell family stories that remind us all dignity never dies. When I look back on everything, the betrayal, the silence, and finally the peace, I understand my journey is not unique. Stories like mine belong to a greater circle of family drama stories that so many of us carry in silence. Some may call them family revenge stories. But here on Brian's story, we see them differently. Not as tales of spite, but as testimonies of strength, faith, and dignity reclaimed. These are true stories, real experiences that remind us what truly matters. Love that cannot be bought, faith that steadies the heart, and the courage to rise again even in old age. Above all, they are life stories, lessons that say, no matter how deep the betrayal runs, dignity never dies. And that's why Brian's story exists, to share these voices, to remind every listener that you are not alone, and that your worth is never defined by those who fail to see it.